Right then, Ralf Rangnick. David Ornstein, you've been all over this story. Just tell us how it's come about that he is now very close to being appointed, and is it, if you're a Manchester United fan, the right appointment for the club?
Yeah, well, it's a long-term process, I think, David, because Manchester United knew Ralf Rangnick for many years. He's been a regarded figure within the game. He has, as we pointed out at the top there, been an influence on some of the biggest coaches in world football, the likes of Klopp, Tuchel, Nagelsmann, Ralf Hasenhüttl and many more besides. Manchester United have had lines of communication with him. John Murtough, their football director, went out to study RB Leipzig when Rangnick was there in 2019. Ed Woodward knows him as well. So there's familiarity. As things were starting to go very badly wrong for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, United would have been surveying the market, maybe making some discreet inquiries. And then once he was sacked on Sunday, they stepped it up. They were very clear in saying they wanted to appoint an interim now and then a permanent manager in the summer. And they spoke to Ralf Rangnick, they spoke to a number of others like Ernesto Valverde, Lucien Favre was reported as well, Rudi Garcia too. But it's clear that Ralf Rangnick very quickly went to the top of their list, and they've managed to reach an agreement with him, as we broke on The Athletic yesterday, to take over on a 6-month contract with a further 2 years on a consultancy basis, which is absolutely crucial, and I think that would have been the defining factor in this. They still need to iron out the details with his club, Lokomotiv Moscow. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And then he also needs a work permit. That process will mean he cannot take charge for the Chelsea game on Sunday, but it looks like he will be the interim manager of Manchester United and fulfil a lifetime ambition to work in the Premier League.
He's saying there, David, interim manager and then going to be kept on for a while. I mean, Kyle, it begs the question, doesn't it? Why make him interim? Why not just give him the job permanently? And it also brings up questions about if another permanent manager does come in, are they happy to work alongside Rangnick in this extended role? I mean, it does leave a lot of questions, doesn't it, Kyle?
It definitely does. And when Manchester United put out the statement saying they were looking for an interim manager, I think that word stuck out to everyone working in football, football fans, anyone interested in this story right now. Everyone wanted to know what they meant by interim, how long would that period be, and actually who would come in after the interim manager. Now, you could look at Ralf and say, well, he could come in, have a solid 6 months, set them up and then go into a role above the management position, which I think Manchester United fans would be very, very excited about. The reaction yesterday, I think for the first time in a very, very long time, Manchester United fans were looking at their club and thinking that they were taking a sensible option and doing something for the long term, not just for the here and now. So I think that's definitely a positive that could come from having an interim manager. They can get to learn about the club, the management position, and then take on this consultancy position as well. But what happens if he has a great 6 months? What happens if he does a Thomas Tuchel? He comes in and who knows, wins the Champions League, wins the FA Cup, gets them Champions League football for next season. How can you then say to that manager, you've had a great 6 months, OK, we're going to remove you, we're going to go up a consultancy position, we're going to bring somebody else in? That's going to be very, very difficult for the next manager to then come in and actually take over and be equally as successful.
Yeah, David, have United in some way here, because of the figure that he is, a great football philosopher, he's essentially the German version of Marcelo Bielsa, is he not? In a kind of way. Carl's got a good point here, hasn't he? And that if you have a football philosophy, it doesn't just happen over 6 months. Normally you get a longer run at that. Have United created a rod for their own back here?
This is one of the fascinating factors, that Ralf Rangnick, who's referred to as being the godfather of gegenpressing, and he builds clubs' identities from the bottom up, he normally needs time. He does demand instant results. If you look at his career, he tries to make an immediate impact, but the sort of more longer lasting legacy comes over time. If we see the work that he did at RB Leipzig, RB Salzburg as a sporting director as well, coaching stints at the likes of Hanover, Hoffenheim, Stuttgart as well. It's not an overnight thing, and that's going to be one of the dilemmas here. But I think Manchester United will feel they'll be getting one of the best possible, if not the best solution for this moment in time. And it's a really tricky situation that they're in, because I think when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was given the job on an interim basis in December 2018, they said he was going to be an interim solution, and they did not stick to that. They gave him it on a permanent basis. They felt he deserved it. So far, they've stuck to their statement. Michael Carrick in charge for the forthcoming games. Then we will make an interim appointment, which looks like it will be Ralf Rangnick, and then we'll look to make the permanent appointment in the summer. Of course, if he blows things out the water and is richly successful, then he will come into the thinking, no doubt, and probably rightly so. But I think as things stand, Manchester United will now begin that process to appoint a permanent, different successor in the summer. And I agree with Kyle. They've probably done something that they should have done a long time ago, but at least they look like they're going to be doing it now. And finally, the people at the top of the club relinquishing a bit of power to somebody who should probably know better than them in terms of his football expertise.
OK, so Kyle, we're all aboard the Gegenpress train now, right, with Ralf. So is Mauricio Pochettino, for example, going to implement that? Is he going to change his style to implement that and make it fully Gegenpress? And is Cristiano Ronaldo going to be one of the players who executes that on the pitch?
Well, that's what will be very, very interesting. There's been so much talk around Cristiano Ronaldo, his pressing, the team not working as a unit when defending. But at the weekend, I saw Cristiano Ronaldo running, getting frustrated with his teammates as well. And you just kind of think that, well, maybe Cristiano, maybe with what is happening, that actually he will be thinking long term, will be thinking about who comes in next and his place in the team. I mean, it would be very interesting if Ralf Rangnick did come in and say, well, actually, Cristiano doesn't play that way, so I'm not going to use him. I think that would be a huge statement. And then next year, if another manager comes in within 6 months, then who will that be? Mauricio Pochettino? Will Cristiano Ronaldo fit into his style of play as well? But you can focus on Ronaldo. You've got to look at the entire team. There was a clip going round of Ralf Rangnick talking about Manchester United's left-back issues from a few years ago, talking about Luke Shaw as well yesterday. That was making the rounds on social media. So I'm sure that a lot of the team will be looking at their position and thinking, well, nothing's solid right now. No matter how good of a season I feel like I've had, how great I was last year, everyone's going to be thinking, new manager, I'm going to have to come in here and really show what I can do. Whether that's adapting, whether that's showing the skills that they've already got, they're going to have to come in and hit the ground running because they're all fighting for their places. They all want to be Manchester United that are winning trophies, that are competing in the Champions League. Every single player wants that, and they might now just have a manager that can help them do that, and they'll all want to be playing.
On the subject of Poch, though, guys, and reading between the lines, Pochettino not particularly happy at Paris Saint-Germain because there's this situation with Leonardo, and he doesn't like he likes to have full control of the club and the way they play and the players that come in, and he's the favourite for Manchester United, or the one that we believe they want. Is he going to be happy coming in and playing under Ralf Rangnick in a certain system and with someone like a big figure like Rangnick above his head? I just can't see it, David. Can you?
Well, firstly, Pete, I don't think that the Pochettino situation is as advanced as some reports have suggested. Of course, there's admiration there on behalf of Manchester United, but I don't think they have made contact with PSG or Pochettino. Maybe some intermediaries have been trying to work up a situation, and it may well develop. We know the long-term admiration. We know Mauricio Pochettino would like to come back to the Premier League, which he loves. I think his wife and one of their children are in the UK, still in London, and he lives in a hotel in Paris, but I don't think we should underestimate how nice that hotel probably is. It's not a satisfactory situation there so far. Most of his first year at PSG was spent ill after suffering from COVID. He also has to deal with those 3 players up front. Amazing names, amazing players, but they don't run in the way that he wants them to. They don't track back. They don't put an effort in for the team like he would expect from players. And so if he was to come in at Manchester United, firstly, we don't know if Ralf Rangnick would still be there and what exactly that consultancy form would take. But if they decide to bring him in, and I'm sure Rangnick would be part of that decision-making process, they'll only do it if they're convinced. They'll also consider other names, I'm sure, like Erik ten Hag, who has a release clause relatively low in the summer that is not active at this point in time. He's, of course, committed there until the end of the season at Ajax. They'll be confident of finding a way to make it work, whether it's Pochettino or somebody else.
What about German coaches, Kyle, in the Premier League? Obviously, we know Klopp, we know Tuchel, Julian Nagelsmann is another growing force in football as far as managers are concerned. What is it about them that makes them so attractive? It's almost like the latest sort of must-have fashion accessory if you're a club, a German coach.
I think the way that they work and how hard they work the players as well, from speaking to certain players that have played under those managers you just mentioned there, is actually how hard they are worked. It's not just one session in the morning, it's 2 sessions, sometimes triple sessions, and the level of detail that they do go into and the level of work that they make the players go through. It is interesting because some of the players have talked about how actually the managers have to adapt their style as well coming to England, because here players train in a very different way compared to how they do over in Germany. So I think that both will have to adapt, the players and the manager. But you look at the style of play, I mean, look at the influence he's had on Klopp. Look at the influence that Rangnick has had on Tuchel as well. Actually, you can see that, and look how successful they have been in the Premier League. Klopp, we know what he's done, winning the Premier League, winning Champions Leagues as well. He's been brilliant at Liverpool, and as I mentioned before, with Tuchel, he came in, hit the ground running, winning that Champions League with Chelsea, and they look like one of the dominant forces to go on to possibly win the Premier League this season as well. I think it'll be a very, very exciting appointment if or when it does happen. So I think now for Manchester United, they're thinking the long term, and that might not be manager for Ralf Rangnick. It will be for 6 months, but for the long term with this consultancy role as well. What can he implement, the philosophy, in the entire club, not just in the management position?
When it comes
I might add quickly.
Go on.
Oh, sorry.
Go on, David.
I might add quickly that he's not actually enjoyed great success in terms of trophies. I think one German Cup, he's brought clubs up to the Bundesliga, and he's not really worked outside Germany as a coach anyway. So for a bit of balance here, it's not going to be an easy job. We mentioned the quick turnaround as well. We mentioned trying to raise the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo to his expectations, but we also shouldn't be naive. Those players are very good, and he is, I'm sure, adaptable. He'll also have an influence not only on coaches outside of Manchester United, but inside. The likes of Michael Carrick, Kieran McKenna, those existing personnel at the club. Also Darren Fletcher in his director role, and John Murta as well, who's been driving this appointment. So it could be a really good appointment on and off the pitch, but it will not be plain sailing, and especially for a club of United's expectations, who will want to finish well in the Premier League, want to make an impact in the Champions League and in the FA Cup too.
Talking about off the pitch, Sir Alex Ferguson, look, he still looms large, doesn't he, over the football club in many ways. Every time they conceded a goal under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the camera would sort of pan up to Sir Alex in the stand. I mean, you can imagine a situation with the next manager that comes in next season. If it isn't Ralf Rangnick, there's going to be a situation where every time they concede a goal, the camera goes to Fergie first and then over to Rangnick afterwards, and they're both sitting there in the stands. But anyway, since Sir Alex Ferguson left, Kyle, the club's identity has suffered, hasn't it, severely? What do they do about that situation? It's a difficult one to manage for anyone coming into the club, isn't it?
It was always going to be very difficult, and we saw that with David Moyes, we've seen that with Louis van Gaal, and they've tried Manchester United different avenues. Jose Mourinho, again, another different style of manager, and then they really tried to bring it home with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. And interviewing Ole, you get this sense that he does understand Manchester United. You really learn what it is to be at Manchester United, the players, the history of Manchester United, and the footballing world. We all know that, so it does feel like Manchester United have tried different avenues. So whoever comes in next, they have to get it right in a way, because Fergie, as we said, he'll always loom over that club because of the rich success that he has had there, the philosophy that he's implemented at Manchester United. You think of Manchester United, you think of Sir Alex Ferguson. So I think now they have to move away from that in a way and give somebody else a chance, but understand whoever comes in, they have to be on the same page, and everyone at the football club, not just Sir Alex Ferguson, but the manager, from the directors, from the owners, all have to be on the same page.
Yeah, and as David said, could be a bit of short-term pain before the long-term gain, the change in philosophy away from what's gone before.